Welcome back to the P.O.W.E.R podcast, property, ownership, wealth and everything related. I'm Melissa Ashcroft, the Director of the AAA Financial Group, where we help clients structure capital and finance across property, business and investment. And on this podcast, we speak to business owners and leaders and find interesting things about how they got to where they are and who they are as people. Today I'm joined by Andy Harris from Motus Transport. Andy has built a reputation not only in the transport industry, but also through his involvement in sport and leadership. What I'm really looking forward to discussing today is the intersection between business ownership, team leadership, and the mindset required to perform at a high level, both in business and in sport. Andy, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure all our listeners are very keen to learn from you. We have a variety of people who've come on this podcast, whether they be in the finance industry or outside of it. And we often get a lot of feedback from people like wanting to learn more about business and business owners.
Yeah, cool.
So when you mentioned to me that you might want to share some things, I was very quick to get you on here, given the success of your career and of Motus Transport. So.
Yeah, cool.
Why don't you share with me a little bit about your personal career journey to how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, cool. Well, I was in the alcohol industry for a long time. I never wanted to do transport. My family was in transport. My dad owned a transport company, and my brother also owns a transport company. But you know, I had my own career doing contracts and stuff and sales and marketing in the alcohol industry, and then I stopped working corporate and went and worked with a few mates, had a business that was doing okay, but I wasn't actually earning any money. So my wife, we decided to have kids, and I needed to kind of try and find some money. And a mate of mine that ran Frankie's said, "We do our own beer. We're not really like the person that's delivering it for us. Weren't you in transport?" And so on a Thursday, I used to hire a truck and deliver 70 kegs into Frankie's, and that was the start of Motus Transport.
Wow. So it kind of happened organically, given your background. Like, obviously, our listeners know my dad started this company, but that was never my plan either. So I always like to hear that familial, journey, but it sounds like you really did forge your own path. So from 70 kegs a week to now, what does the Motus Transport look? Maybe just like holistically.
Yeah. So
'cause I don't know.
We probably move. We probably move about upwards of 25,000 cases a week and about 10,500 kegs a week. So
right.
Yeah.
So see, this is learning for me too, everybody. So how does that work? Because I know the big names in alcohol and obviously enjoy the hospitality industry. So are you delivering to pubs and restaurants, or how does it all work together?
Yeah, so for us it's we deliver to over 4,000 pubs, clubs, restaurants and bottle shops.
Wow.
Up and down the East Coast.
Yeah.
We're not in Victoria, but we anywhere from Huskisson up to Hervey Bay.
Yep.
And we have 75 trucks to do so.
Wow.
And so all those venues, they'll put an order into their customer and then we'll deliver it on their behalf.
Sure. So the customer brings it to you.
Yep.
To your factory or warehouse, and then you distribute it from
Correct.
there.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
we're a next day delivery business. So they'll put an order in on Tuesday and then they'll have it delivered on time and in full on Wednesday. And
I guess that works well for, I'm just going to say hospitality industry, but let me know if it's a different terminology.
No, so the hospitality industry is just good to know that you've got stock. So this week being one of our busier weeks, short week, Easter, we have to fit a whole week into 4 days.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of venues that sometimes forget that Easter's around the corner, and so today is probably one of the busiest days in the year, as well as Christmas
and yet you've made your way here to film this. But look, again, I'm even more appreciative now of your time to do that. But so that means the business as well you must have a lot of staff, because we don't have driverless trucks yet.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to have to manage and deal with from a margin point of view, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we have to, like, because it does ebb and flow. So it really depends. So summer is obviously a really big time of year for us. And we've got really good, solid team members. But we have to, so what we do at Christmas and kind of at peak periods, we don't have we don't use a recruitment company.
Yeah.
We actually use sporting teams. So we actually, that's where we recruit from, and that's who we kind of use, and they're really good people. And
Yeah.
you can kind of, I can ring up probably, 4 or 5 coaches,
Yep.
and they'll have a few players that may need some work, and
Yeah.
so we'll put them into getting
How
work.
good.
Yeah.
So you're giving jobs, and like rugby players as well must find it hard, especially if they're on a booze ban, that they're driving these trucks full of booze. But obviously, it's good because the players, I guess the ones that we know through the union world, they're not on the highest of salaries in the junior clubs if they're on anything, so they have to make ends meet as well.
Yeah,
and so it's transient work for them too.
Yeah, so I think when New South Wales or the Waratahs played the Reds, there was 2 on the Reds team and 4 on the Waratahs team that are either past or current staff members. So,
yeah, great. Well, that's good. They should autograph the cases or the kegs or whatever it is, and you could put a markup on that. That's just a tip from me to you.
We're going to put Charlie Gamble on the back of one of the trucks in his budgie smugglers, but he was all
and
for it.
revenue doubled. Okay, interesting. And so I know I've given you some show notes, but as I said, I like to kind of jump around depending on where the conversation goes. So let's just rewind back in time a little bit. So when you were first in that startup stage, and just to add, there's no doubt you've got plans, like a future plan, probably to be national or what have you. What were the initial challenges with going from the one truck that you hired to, not to where you are now, but in that first couple of years?
Yeah, so it's really hard to, when I tried to get a driver pretty much straight away because I knew that running the warehouse, my wife thankfully ran the office, and then we just needed someone to do driving. So the challenge was when that happens. So as soon as we got to 3 days, I then got a driver who's still with us now.
Yeah.
We got him, and then it was just me running the warehouse, but we didn't have any tech back then.
Yes.
So having no tech for us was like, as soon as we could afford tech, we got tech. So the technology.
Yeah, do you want to speak on that a bit? Because I had a quick look on the website. So it's like a tracking beacon.
Yeah. So for us, is technology in transport was one of the biggest things.
But why?
Well, because a lot of old school transport doesn't use technology.
Right.
And the only way to go forward is using technology. And so the big thing for us was when we moved to a product called Carton Cloud, which was kind of one of the better in the industry when we first got it. It just revolutionized how we did stuff. It just made things a lot faster. You weren't losing spreadsheets, and it just became so much easier.
Yeah. The thing I find about tech is that it encourages automation, but also accountability. Because if you've got things scanned into a system, as you said, an Excel spreadsheet, there's variances there. You obviously don't want to disappoint your clients or customers by under or over delivering. So that's how technologies help. But does it also track the location of all the trucks?
Yeah, so we have tracking on every single vehicle, which helps us when customers ring up and say, Newtown Hotel needs their kegs, and we can give them real-time information.
Updates. And then getting back to the pubs and restaurants, it must also be a great model for them because they might not know over a weekend how much they're going to utilise. So being able to have that speed of delivery means that they're never going to ruin their own cash flow by over or under ordering and the storage associated. I guess that's another strong benefit. And so you've coined yourself as like one of the little guys in other conversations we've had. How does it work on a larger scale with, let's say, that like a football stadium or something like that? Do you see them as your competitors?
Probably not the football stadiums. Like we've got a few competitors. We're lucky in an industry where, there's BevChain, which is probably the pinnacle.
Yeah.
They do all the kind of the big guys. So we do a little bit for those people.
Yeah.
And because we're nimble, and that's one of our big advantages is doesn't matter how big we ever get, we're always
Yeah.
going to be nimble. It is harder
Yeah.
the bigger you get.
Yeah.
I had a product owner yesterday, last night, pretty much he messaged me at 8:50 and said, I need stock to get to Bundanoon tomorrow. Are you sending a truck down there? And I said, yeah, no worries. And he was very thankful
Yes.
to be able to do that.
Yeah, of
and
course.
to be able to just push stuff through.
Yeah.
One of my big things is in business is always say yes and then deal with it afterwards. My staff hate it.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm exactly like that. So yeah, it's not. I'm like you. Take it all, and if you then deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
I guess of
Yeah.
paying overtime or dealing with tired staff or overworked people and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And given the timeliness, I guess, of this podcast, and as we've alluded to, Easter being just around the corner, and everything happening in the world, how does that work with your margins in terms of fuel? Because obviously that cost of fuel to Bundanoon now is going to be double what it used to be. So is that something that the customer is aware of and you on charge for, or does your margin allow for like what's going on now?
So for us, we have fuel thing is a really big thing. Having a fuel levy, we do pass it on.
Yeah.
We are fortunate to have Bowsers on site. So
Yes.
in Sydney and Brisbane, we have large Bowsers. So we kind of timed it okay.
Yeah.
In saying that, we still got, I think, around $3 fuel up 2 weeks ago. Hopefully, we'll have another fuel up next week. So
Yeah.
with the new rebate in, which is, I don't like charging a fuel levy. It's one of those things. It's an industry norm and it's great, but it's all about educating our customers as well and trying to do as much as we can.
Yeah.
I think topical. I've never been into sending notes to media or parliamentarians, but last week I sent an email to David Pocock, and I think last night he comes up and all the brewers are sharing something.
Yes.
And the email that I sent pretty much alerted him on some of the stuff he's saying. So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, obviously, David Pocock, if you're listening, please feel free to, be one of the guests on the P.O.W.E.R podcast. Maybe we could have Andy as well. But it obviously is an industry where there's a lot of talk and a lot of, communication between between people. And he's a public personality and he's got a very unique opinion on what he's presenting, and a lot of people listen to him. But they're still going to drink booze, right? Like, I don't think our country especially is seeing a tapering off of that like we do see in the States. So yeah, that's interesting. So where do you go? Like, if you're going to email Pocock, who's next?
Well, I don't really. It's more about educating customers and giving them insight to what the norms are for the industry.
Yeah.
Like we've got.
What are the norms?
Well, we've got over 200 customers, and the big, the thing for me is I'm a cost center for most people, but it's also helping my customers get rangings. If we're really good at our job, which is delivering on time and in full, then we'll get more customers.
Yeah.
And so it's all about that whole customer service thing. Like if we're the best, then everyone wants to be used.
To use. So when you mentioned being nimble earlier and the technology being such an important tool that you have, and you've got, say, 200, which is like mind-blowing to me, like that's a lot of customers. Can your business model allow for 1,000 customers and still remain nimble?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And I think that's also our staff is like, we started, with one customer, we were soon to about 50, and
Yeah.
then it got kind of, we had enough room for that, and now filling sheds is, I pride myself on, but
Yeah.
um, the more customers is actually easier because it's all
Yeah.
about basket size. So
Right.
if we can deliver um, less times to each venue, but the
Yes.
basket size is bigger, it helps everyone.
Everyone. And if you have 10 clients in Bundanoon,
Correct.
you've got an economy of scale there. So anyone in Bundanoon? I know. But look, I hear what you're saying. So you've created a smart, dynamic business model that can cater for more. The fuel price levy is an educational, or like the increase in cost of fuel is an educational piece. So I think that makes sense to anyone listening who may or may not have owned a business before, or may own 10 and want to know more about what you're doing. So let's kind of pivot from that now and talk about your teams and staff, and the correlation between being a sports person like yourself and working with teams. Like you've already just, told us that, you hire team players in a sporting field. So how has that been a strong benefit for you and your business?
I think that it really works with discipline, works in being just in a team environment. Like the conversations that you can have with staff, you know, they actually really like what rugby teams do and things. So we had someone come in and speak to us, and he was a GM of a rugby club.
Right.
Now, the great thing, everyone thought it was going to be this corporate, stupid thing, but they picked up on certain things that rugby players do. There was one thing that Sydney Uni do, which is after every session they do a hot wash. And what it is, it's about talking about what we did well and what we didn't do well and what we can improve on.
Yeah.
And my team use it to this day.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
it's just something that you're able to put what you do on the sporting field into the business world.
Yeah.
Most of our management team, all of them have played sport
Yeah.
at a pretty good level.
Yeah.
But they actually, in turn, are really good to, feedback is a big thing as well. You know, no one gets offended if they,
if the team is providing context,
Yeah.
like we did this and you did that, but you're part of a team, so therefore it's not like someone going, you did this wrong and you're not part of this culture, I guess. Because we say culture, but I call it teams. I say hi team quite regularly as part of, even when I refer to other families, I'm like team Ashcroft or team Harris, know, because it is that mentality.
Totally. And like the big thing is, like, stuffing up happens every time. Like, I'm married, you're married.
Yeah.
I stuff up every day.
Yeah.
Like, it just in it, and the thing is, I think when you put your hand up and say, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I think that's when you can start to fix it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is also teaching, my members, and it's the same thing in sport. If someone, drops a ball or is offside or something, or they haven't been doing something properly, like a golf swing or something, they're soon to go, I'm not doing this right.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix it moving forward.
Yeah.
And we never get people, yes, there's emotional times when, something happens, but, most of the time we can fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And that probably comes from your place of yes as well, right? Like, you know what, we're taking on this work, we can fix it later. You've got people around you that can facilitate that, change, because they're part of a team. And, I do talk to a lot of people in, CEO and entrepreneurial levels, that the common denominator I'm finding is that they have played sport in the past, or that they know what teamwork is, and sporting being a physical thing but also a mental thing is what they say is what has made them better leaders. So what you're saying is just like ding, 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 ding to everything that I know. Not to say that if you don't play sport, you can't be a great leader, but I do think it gives you context for a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit more about that and say, what lessons from sport can directly lead into leadership?
I think the biggest lessons I find is just, picking yourself up. If you ever get let down, just moving on.
Yeah, I find that hard.
Yeah, and it's sometimes if you lose, if you haven't won a big contract, or I did last year, and then it's just like it's very hard, but like it's for me, you've just got to dust yourself off and then go on to the next.
Yeah.
A big thing that I do, every day, is I write down, I have about 10 things, and I find 10 things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's just my little to-do list, but it's also things that I need to work on better,
Yeah.
and kind of get better at. And it's in family life, it's in work, but it's
Yeah.
also in what are, some kind of benchmarks that I need to hit. So it's just
Yeah.
being able to stay focused, not get
Yeah.
upset about it. Yeah, you can get upset, but you got to move on. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing in sport for me, is to be able to, if you lost the grand final, it's the next year.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I guess it's like like as you mentioned, a golf swing, you can fine tune that golf swing over time to eventually, reach a high level in that. And like by fine tuning that skill of moving on and maintaining momentum, I think is a really important touch on for what we're talking about today. I wish I was better at that, so maybe I should start the list. But yeah, like it's not like I'm sitting here with a burn book. We may need to edit that out later or keep it depending, but like I have a burn book. But it's the fire of that burn that I think has helped me become successful, because there's always something churning in there, because I could just keep things going as they are. But no, every year I change things, I rebrand a business, I added this podcast in, board appointments, it just keeps going, because there's like a real fire in me, maybe part burn book, but also you've got to have that to keep going and not be complacent.
You've got to always be motivated. Like the big thing is, my dad had a transport company and my brother's got one, and that's what moves me every day.
Yeah.
To try and this is probably to be better than what I've learnt from.
Yes.
And so to always, to be the best, yes, sometimes it's a bit kind of overwhelming for some people around me. My wife says, why didn't you just get a normal job?
Well, I know Emily, and I know she means that half. But yeah, I think this is, again, he's a leader and a business owner. And to those people who aren't business owners yet or want to be, or who those that are, they know that you've just got to keep that momentum, but also you've got to have self-belief. You've got to have confidence. You've got to fine-tune your skills. But there is a fire in everybody. And like maybe they use a different, analogy. But for me, it's that there's something that just keeps propelling things to keep going. So I don't know. Everyone says to me, where do you think, you're going to take your two companies and the podcast and whatever? And I'm like, I don't actually know, but I know they're going to keep going and keep expanding. So can I ask you the same question?
I get asked a lot, like, for us is like, people like, oh, do you want to sell out? And I'm like, well, not really. Like, it's one of those things is everyone, for me, it's about growing the business. And, I love going to work. I love my staff. Like, they're amazing people. And it's like seeing, all them, grow with the business as well. Like, there's a few staff members that, the business is only owned by myself and my wife, and we've got no other shareholders. But the biggest thing about that is, like, if we were to sell tomorrow or anything happened like that, their people would be looked after, and they're not written in words or anything like that. And that means a lot to me. And those staff know that. But it's always like, being able to talk to people if you are not motivated as well. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. How do you draw that out? Like, because I also have a view that a lot of people like just to be told what to do, or to come in at 9 and leave at 5, and they just kind of do as much as they want to do, but they don't motivate to be like, what, if I just did an extra bit of work here, or if I pushed this, or if I challenged the team on something, I'd have self-growth. They don't see it that way. So how do you motivate people? How do you motivate the guy driving to Bundanoon today?
Well, I always like to give people what they like doing. So a lot of, and it's teaching my staff to do the same. So like there's certain things that I know that drivers hate doing.
Yeah.
And it might be some love the long drive,
Yeah.
some love working in the city, some love this.
Yeah.
My whole thing is, and I teach allocators and even the managers, give them what they like doing most
Yeah.
of the time. Because
Yeah.
if you can keep people motivated,
Yeah.
then they're happy. Like,
Yeah.
there's a certain few people that hate driving in the city.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you keep giving that guy the city? And
Yeah.
he's like, well, if you put him out doing somewhere else,
Yeah.
then that really works and they love doing that. Give
Yeah.
them what they like doing.
Give them what they like. Well, I feel like, I'll be honest. I feel like 30 to 40% of what I do, I hate doing, and everyone has a different strategy. Some people do everything else and then leave that till last. Some people hit it first up. So, and you love going to work. I love going to work. Like, that's not it. But what about that? What about like, you can't just placate, I guess, to everybody in your business.
Correct, yeah.
So what do you do in the case where it's like, sorry, but this is that? Other than the team leadership, getting someone in to talk, what else can you do?
One of the things is, like, we do lunches for everyone in the warehouse and the office.
Nice.
So it's a good chance for everyone to come together.
Yeah.
So so everyone kind of at lunch kind of stops, and then if they're kind of feeling that they need help or something's kind of annoying them, they can bring it
Yeah.
up then.
Okay.
One other thing is, I'm open to everyone talking. Like,
Yeah.
so I would send out emails telling people that if you are finding something difficult, put your hand up. Like, the biggest
Yeah.
thing is, especially around times that are busy,
Yeah.
like,
you need everyone on.
you need everyone on, but also some people might not be, they might be struggling in something that's got nothing to do with work.
Yeah.
So to be very open and stuff, like, are you okay day is a big thing for me, and
Yeah.
making sure people's, keeping, because everyone says don't bring your personal life to
Yeah.
work, but you're at work 80% of the time, so you're always
Yeah.
going to have to bring it.
Yeah.
So I'm very open with people talking about that. I think
That's
that
nice.
that really helps people going, because if they can share their personal stuff, they can share all the other things that they don't like as well.
Yeah.
And then they get help on that.
And then they can get help. Yeah, I like that. Like, you've got to have a lot of EQ. Not every manager or leader has that, So by getting to know people better from a personal point of view, you think, enables them to be better at their job.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Good. I like that. And how do you personally deal with setbacks or difficult decisions? Like, let's say, I'm sorry to be hard on you, but I'm not. But let's say you've got a difficult staff member. For whatever reason, they've been with you a couple of years, but they're not working out, or there's a client that you've had that, is just not working or whatever. That must be a difficult thing or a difficult conversation. Not saying like, how do you fire someone, but like, how do you deal with the difficult conversations, especially when you might know what's going on in their personal lives, but it's still not working for the business?
This is quite raw. We had a staff member who was a family member too.
Wow.
And it was very hard. Like, it's probably one of the biggest things as a business that we've had to do, but
Yeah.
to move the business forward, we kind of needed it.
Yeah.
And
And they're related and like family.
So
Yeah.
the hardest
That's
thing
tough.
in business is when you have to make that hard decision, trying to map it out and trying to go, okay, well, you try and do it as easy as you can, but sometimes, and it got to the point where it had to be pretty blunt.
Yeah.
And as hard as it was, it's probably the best thing for the business.
Yeah.
You have to make those calls. Like,
Yeah.
for us is, when you get bigger,
Yeah.
it just gets harder.
Yes.
Not harder, but it just gets, everything's just multiplied by more.
Yes.
So the staff members and, you're responsible, for 110 people to make sure that, they can pay rent, they can put food on the table and, support their families. So,
Yeah.
like, that's my biggest thing is...
Yeah, that's a lot, Andy. Like,
Yeah. Like, it's
you
a
don't
big...
have to take it on, but you choose to.
But, yeah, and the big thing for us is, every staff member I care about.
Yeah.
And
You know all their names?
Well, I used to. Sometimes I'm really bad with names, so I'm good with faces. I'm good with faces, so
Yeah,
like
yeah, I know
I
them.
legit,
Yeah.
I know that person, but
Yeah.
no.
No, I'm not
I
calling
saw
that
one in
out.
the
It's very hard
supermarket
to
on the
know.
weekend. I totally forgot his name, but I was like, but the thing is, like, making sure that everyone's well-being is massive. Like,
Yeah,
I
of
kind of,
course.
because people deal with stuff in different ways, and
Yeah.
yeah,
No, well, good on you for being like that. I mean, I've spoken to a fund manager before, and very different story to yours, but yeah, he goes, I used to know everyone's name, and like I was in the office with them, and that was when he was about 70, and now I think they're about 350, 400, and he's like, multiple offices, I don't even know who they are, and he goes, he's dramatically have to shift because it's like, oh, well, now I don't know everyone in my business, but my business is obviously doing a lot better. So that is the trade-off, I guess. And you can't be there for everybody at all times, but certainly by initiatives like Are You OK Day and lunches to check in, I would say that's more than what I hear most people do. So good on you. So part of our podcast is always to do some quick fire questions. Now, our listeners know that if you've been given these, so I'd just like you to pretend that you haven't and just quick fire response, because I think it's just sometimes, like in a rugby game, you have to make
changed my mind about 8 times on these quick fire games.
So, like in a rugby game, it's all happening. There's 30 seconds to go. Your ball from the sideline. You have to make quick decisions: who to pass to, what to do. Am I doing the right thing? So let's just go with that as our thought pattern. What is the biggest lesson you've learned? Go. This is not quick enough.
I'm so bad. No. The biggest lesson I've learned is not everything is going to plan out the way you plan it.
Great. Best advice you've ever received?
Not everyone is going to like you.
A daily habit that helps you perform at a high level?
Always get in coffee, read the paper, and do a list.
One book or person that has influenced you?
It's probably 2 people.
Yeah.
I'm big on history, so
Yeah.
Winston Churchill and Napoleon on strategy.
Wow, I was not expecting that from you. And finally, what's a power quote or mantra that you live by?
Always say yes.
Always say yes. Well, Andy, thank you for joining us on the P.O.W.E.R podcast today on the busiest day of the year. So we will ensure that this gets out very soon, as in time for our listeners to digest the context of everything we've discussed. And I'm really appreciative of your time. I think one of the biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that every business is unique and every business leader has their own set of goals and objectives, but you're someone that's taken in the idealism around team sport, but also taken in the care for staff, which is something that obviously has enabled the success of your business. So I think that is something that I'm going to take home personally for myself. And I had a different conclusion there, but that's from the heart.
Oh,
so
thank you.
yeah, no, I'm very appreciative, and I'll take on some of that for myself and my own business.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for listening today. The end.